think that, when sometimes the language we use isn't very helpful. I'm going to do an ask meeting, I'm going to make a pitch. It sounds very much like I'm going to transmit information to this poor person who's sitting at the other side of the table. It's not that. It's a conversation, and it's a conversation in which we should probably do more listening than talking. We do, when they say, okay, what is it you want? You do want to have a very clear, fluent, passionate, statement to make. But up until that point, you're really hoping they'll tell you more about why they've willing to have this conversation, what's their interest. So the more we can ask them about what brings you to here, or what, how did you first get involved? I remember that was one of the really good bits of advice I got when I did essentially my apprenticeship in that first job at the Cardinal Hume Centre. There was only two of us in the team, Robert Johnson and myself, and he was the director of fundraising and I was his fundraising officer. And one of his bits of advice was, when you've got someone who's been on the database for a while but hasn't given in a while, if you can have a conversation with them and say, oh, it was wonderful that you donated to us 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or came to our event 3 years ago, whatever it was. I'd love to know what prompted that, what brought you along to that. And suddenly you're taking them back to their original enthusiasm. I think also fundraising is a thing we do. It's not just a thing we study and talk about. It's not just an abstract theoretical thing. It's a very practical thing. And somebody once said to me, it's a bit like trying to learn swimming without getting into the pool. You've just got to get in. You can sit in the classroom where we can talk about flotation and, stroke and breathing techniques for swimming. Yeah. But you've just got to get in the pool and do it and have a go and learn as you go along. And I think fundraising is definitely a skill like that, where you have to dive in literally and metaphorically. I'm a big fan of role play and practicing with colleagues. I'm going to a meeting, can I just sit and practice my pitch to you? Can I practice making an ask? Because you don't want to be making those mistakes in the real life scenario. And if you think, there's a lot of professions like that. I mean, when people learn to fly a plane, they go into a flight simulator. When you're learning to do surgery, you practice on sort of a simulated body. So I think fundraising, similarly, we can practice we can practice it, in a real life type scenario, but without risking making a bad ask to somebody that really could change the fortunes of our charity for good. Worst case scenario, stand in front of a mirror and ask yourself, and you'll know, because it's partly about practicing how fluent you are. And you'll realize you dry up. Hang on a minute, I can't explain exactly what this project is, or you can practice yourself. What kind of questions might they ask? Well, what's the impact of this work? Oh, I better go and do some research and make sure I've got a good answer to that. So I think worst case scenario, you stand in front of a mirror or ask a loved one or a friend who's not a fundraising mentor, but is just a human being, who can tell you, do you know what, you sounded a bit preachy when you said that, or that was a bit long-winded, or it wasn't very clear. Get someone who'll be honest with you. And you will not regret that time that you spend finessing. You don't want to sound too smooth. We're not double glazing salespeople. We're not trying to, but you want to be fluent and you want to be passionate and you want to be clear. One time I got invited to visit the lifeboats, the RNLI headquarters in Poole. And I was there because I was friends with the director of fundraising in the lifeboats, and she wanted me to present research to her team, and I was very happy to do that. But before the team meeting, she gave me a tour of the building. Yeah. And I realised halfway through the tour that people in the building thought I was a donor. Because why would they think I'm an academic who studies fundraising? I was being shown around the building by the head of fundraising, and I was probably I'm not a very smartly dressed person, but I was probably, wearing a suit and I suddenly realised that they thought I was, a person of wealth who might make a big donation. And everybody talked at me. Whatever room I went into, there was these not so subtle, oh, this equipment's a little bit dated, and oh gosh, it would be so wonderful if we had some money for this. And I thought it was a real eye-opener for me. This is what it must be like to be a rich person visiting a charity. And everyone's just talking at me and nobody's asking me who I am and what I'm interested in. And actually, I had been involved in the lifeboats. When I was at college, we ran a lifeboat station. Right. And what I really wanted to know was, how's my lifeboat station doing? Have you had any call-outs recently? Have they had a new boat recently? But no, I didn't get the chance to ask. And if I had been a donor and hadn't had the chance to say, actually, I'm really interested in this one particular station in South Wales and how are they doing, I'd have left that building feeling depleted, not energized.